Hello to viewers of The Pioneer. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. We continue our reporting activities related to the Russia-Ukraine war. In a moment, we will again follow the latest developments on the front line with a map. The war continues. There are intense clashes at some points and less intense clashes at other points. The Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian people's decision. Whether the conditions, they are fighting to the end the Russian occupation. Kherson, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Bakhmut. There is a pressure from the Russian army on the Donetsk front, and they are making progress. However, the Russian pressure on the other fronts is not enough to push the Ukrainian army back. The Ukrainian army continues to resist in its positions. What is the latest situation on the struggle between the Ukrainian armed forces and the occupying Russian armed forces, who are trying to save their countries under the very difficult conditions? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the video. Let's start if you are ready, the Pioneer reports. Let's start our report with the developments on the Kherson front line. As you know, most of the operational activities here are carried out by the Ukrainian Marines. The Ukrainian Marines continue their operations on the eastern bank of the Dnieper River without interruptions. According to the latest reports, they aim to create a new bridgehead in the direction of Krinky, mobilized with the support of artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces. For this purpose, there are intense clashes between Ukrainian Marines and the Russian troops trying to advance in the forested areas in the direction of Krinky. The units of the Russian armed forces are carrying out offensive activities to eliminate the bridgeheads that the Ukrainian Marines already have. When we look at these attacks, we see that the Russian army is continuing in Krinky and at the same time in the Antonivsky region. The Russian armed forces are fighting to eliminate Ukrainian bridgeheads. However, there is no result. As we have already mentioned, the Ukrainian armed forces were developing their fortifications in order to protect their positions. It is not possible to say that the Russian troops can advance here unless the Ukrainian armed forces decide to make a tactical withdrawal. We have seen this at many points before. The Ukrainian armed forces are able to repel the Russian armed troops thanks to the defensive fortifications they have established in the captured areas. If the Ukrainian armed forces do not retreat, the Russian troops cannot advance. It was the same in Zaporizhia, it was the same in Donetsk, and it was the same in Bakhmut. And this is why Russian troops are also reacting. Allegedly, Russian troops on the Kherson front line do not want to carry out infantry attacks. The desire of the Russian troops is to completely soften up the Ukrainian positions within intensive artillery strikes. However, the Russian war leadership does not agree with the Russian troops on this issue. Therefore, Russian troops are suffering heavy losses on the Kherson front line. Let's continue with artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in Ochakov, Kherson, Antonivka, Novotanigivka, Taiginivka, and Lviv. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions under the control of the Russian armed forces in Olapiristan, Olishki, Poima, and Pechanovka. Let's continue our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Zaporizhia front line. Today, we will consider two sections of the Zaporizhia front line at once. In the Robotny sector of the Zaporizhia front line, we see the elements of the Russian armed forces are carrying out attacks in the direction of Novoprokopivka and Novofedorivka. However, Russian troops did not achieve any gains during these attacks. In the Vuhledar sector of the Zaporizhia front line, the situation remains largely unchanged. Some reports claim that the Ukrainian armed forces had withdrawn from the Yorkhain and Stromayursk. However, at the same time, we don't have any clear data that Russian troops have established control in these regions. On the other hand, we see that units of the Russian armed forces are carrying out offensive operations in the direction of Vuhledar. However, there is no result. The Ukrainian armed forces continue to hold their positions. Let's look at artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Orikhiv, Robotny, Charvini, Stromayursk, and Yorkhain. On the other hand, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces in the direction of Zaporizhia, Novoprokopivka, Novopokrovka, Volhytny, and Verbov. Let's continue our report by looking at the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest information from the region and international sources, Russian troops on the Donetsk front managed to reach Novo-Mikhailivka. Heavy clashes continue. There is also information that elements of the Russian armed forces are making progress in the northern part of Marinka. However, it is not yet possible to talk about full control in the city. According to reports, the Russian armed forces, with the support of long-range weapons, continue to carry out offensive operations near Permomskoye towards Tonikoye, near Severnoye in the industrial zone southeast of the city, near the coking plant near east of the city, in Stepnoye and Novokalinov. Despite these intense attacks, the Ukrainian armed forces are still largely holding their positions. This was stated by one of the top commanders of the Ukrainian armed forces in the past days. The Ukrainian armed forces have already taken a full defense position on the Donetsk front line. We have already stated this in our many reports. The advancement of the Russian troops in this region will create major problems for Ukraine. Therefore, Ukrainian troops need to strengthen their defense fortifications here. We know that a large number of Ukrainian troops have been deployed to this region from other front lines. Therefore, what is happening on the other front line is quite normal. Ukrainian troops are stopping the Russian troops here and inflicting heavy losses. Let's continue by analyzing developments on the Bakhmut front line. We knew that some of the Ukrainian troops on the Bakhmut front line had been shifted to the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, this seems to have affected the Bakhmut front line. The Russian armed forces have increased their offensives in the direction of Kromov, Bogdanivka, and Ivanivsky. In these three areas, we see that the Russian armed forces achieved tactical success. Although the Russian armed forces have made progress in these regions, they still have not been able to make gains in the direction of Klishchivka and Andreevka. We see that the Russian troops continue to attack in these two regions. However, Ukrainian troops who are in advantageous positions in this region managed to repel the attacks of the Russian army. What do you think? Do you think Ukrainian troops will be able to advance on the Kherson front line? What do you think about the situation of the Russian troops on the Donetsk front line? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.